Welcome to the Coach Harp Show. Today we have a very special guest. He played professional basketball and he's a great mentor with all youth. Welcome to the show, Robbie Sihota.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to having a nice chat with you here.
Robbie, it's always good to know about a lot of athletes when they play sports because the biggest thing is I'd like to know more about is how did you start playing basketball?
So believe it or not, yeah, I didn't necessarily start playing basketball till a later age. My childhood, I actually lived in India when I was young too for 3 years. So I mean, I was kind of exposed to a lot of different sports. I grew up. I played cricket in India. Came back. I played a little bit of hockey as normal Canadian kids do. And then I got into basketball. Just a lot of friends playing basketball. My social circle started playing a lot of basketball and just playing pickup basketball with my friends, and it just kind of went from there. And long story short is that's basically how it started for me here.
All right, I see that you say so. I like the fact that you're very rooted to your culture. I like the fact that you said you started playing in India and then it grew within you. Now, I'm more curious about how does cultural barrier in, show up in sports?
I mean, specifically, I can speak to our culture specifically is really hyper focused on education, and it's almost overbearing. We get I feel like our culture has tunnel vision sometimes, where it's only school, 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 and nothing else can kind of get in the way of that. Whereas I think sports, not only basketball, sports in general, can actually really open a lot of doors outside of the sport itself, and it provides certain opportunities that I think our culture in general doesn't see. I think it's definitely over the last, I would say, the last decade now, we're starting to see a lot more, especially in North America, generally speaking, that sports, what kind of opportunities it provides. So, I mean, in terms of barriers, I mean, I would definitely say that that's one of the barriers is that parents, I think, will look at sports sometimes as a way where they're not focusing on the right things. But I think it's a great tool to for myself. It helped me travel the world. It helped me pay for my education. It helped me do a lot of different things outside of just playing basketball.
I like how you said that because through sports, I played football, and then through there, what I learned is there's lots of brotherhood. You learn about culture. The biggest thing is you learn about adversity and how to deal with as a team opposed to an individual. So I appreciate you sharing that stuff that God. How did family support make a big impact on you?
I mean, my family was very supportive from the start. We all have that kind of cultural barrier kind of lurking over our heads, where you want to be, everybody's always wanting you to be successful as a kid growing up, but they were very supportive. Growing up here in the Northeast. I mean, I go to Leisure Center all the time, and we'd be there for hours on hours, and we'd just be playing on weekends and whenever we had free time. So um, I felt the support early on. My brother also played as well too. I mean, he's a couple years younger than me, but we would just be out there and playing. And my parents were both. They also were part of the athletic world back in India as well too. So I think they had kind of a sense of what sports can do for them, and naturally, I think that gravitates towards your kids as well, right?
Thank you for sharing that. I know that you played for University of Calgary for the Dinos, and you had a very good basketball career with them. Where and what other professional teams did you play for?
Yeah, so after my high school career here at Lester B. Pearson here, I went on to the University of Calgary, played for 5 years there. After that, I had about a 7 year career overseas in Europe, mostly. So I started off in the Netherlands. I played a couple years in the Netherlands. I went to Switzerland. I played in Switzerland. I played in Hungary. I played in the Germany, the Bundesliga. I had a brief stint in China, But those are kind of the predominantly more of Europe was mostly Europe was where I was playing professionally for 7 years.
Well, congratulations, because that's a big milestone for you, playing especially at that level in Europe. So, congratulations. When did you make that transition into the business world?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of, I always had it in the back of my mind that basketball and sports, and this is what I tell a lot of the young guys too now, is that it's not, you definitely need to be fully focused on what you're doing at the time, but always understand that sports can be taken away from you at any second. And, you being a football guy, I mean, injuries are more than prevalent in football, just like any other sport. And I always say that is that, your career can turn around in 1 second. So for me, it was always on the back of my mind where, okay, well, I need to be focused on what I'm doing now, but I also need to understand that, that there's other, it's not, basketball is not all that it's not all about, it's not everything in life, right? And so back in, I think it was about 2015, 2016, I started thinking about what I was going to do next. I actually got my real estate license in 2016 while I was going into my last season playing abroad. I was finishing my last season actually in Budapest, so I got my license before I left, and then I went overseas to finish my last season. And then I was working kind of on things that I needed to prepare for while I was ready. Well, when I was ready to come back. So when I did come back in 2017, mid 2017, I was pretty much ready to go at that point, where I had kind of prepped before I even came back, when I got fully licensed with a brokerage, and I was ready to go in 2017 onto the business.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. How you're talking about sports. I played back in the 80s and the 90s, where they didn't have any safety recognition, where you basically led with your head. So for us, it was more, if you had a clean helmet, we're going to hit you. And the people who had the most skulls on the back of their helmets, those are the people you didn't want to go up against. And their helmets were all marked up. Through there, what ended up happening is, yes, nobody knew what concussion was, right? And no, like, you had more of an what do you call it? I'm strong. If I'm not going to knock you down, it's more about ego, more pride. So sports has changed so much now these days, stuff like that, with a lot of barriers that are trying to tell people, listen, you got to follow safety. These are the things that will happen. Yes, you're right. Your body will break down, right? And then you got to look after what you want to do, because sports is very limited, like you said. You got to think outside the box sometimes. Now, this question I'm always curious about: how did you deal with life after sports?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question because you see it all the time, whether when people are finishing high school sports or, I saw it at the university level where, I would talk to certain guys and they would handle it in different ways. And I never wanted to be, and I was lucky enough where, and I was fortunate enough to not get any major injuries throughout my career. Because that's a big thing that can change in, the split of a second here, right? So for me, it was always just having in the back of my mind, just be prepared for anything. And, when it does end, not keep your identity as a basketball player. Cause I think, you'll see it in football and hockey. Growing up, and as you become more successful in a sport, you become identified as a basketball player from other people. You have to know your self-worth and know that you're not just a basketball player. There's more to it than just being a basketball player. So for me, it was having that self-awareness and saying that I'm not just a basketball player. Basketball player is what I do, and I've used basketball as a tool to get to where I want to get to. But at the same time, it doesn't define who I am. If it's taken away from me, I'm still, there's a lot of other things that I can do. I'm capable of doing other things. So I think that was a big thing. That's what I tell a lot of the younger guys now too, is that don't let the sport define you. Don't let it use you. Use the sport and use it as a tool to get to where you want to get to.
This one I want to ask you, since we're talking here. What is the difference between an athlete mindset versus just a regular person?
I mean, I think it's, the drive definitely because, I look at the athlete. I wouldn't say it's different than a regular person. That's also subjective as well too. I think just the mindset of an athlete. I mean, if you don't work for what you need to get done, you won't find that success. I mean, the sports is the kind of the epitome of you work for something and you will reap the rewards and you will reap the benefits of it down the road. And if you don't, it'll show. So it's very, very much so. You have to be driven. You have to be very focused on what you're doing. You have to be very task oriented in terms of what you're doing on a day to day basis. A lot of things that make successful people in general, not just athletes, I think, is to have goals that are measurable and break them down day to day, hour by hour, right? And I think that leads to the end result is the success. And I always talk about focusing on the process, and I think the process is the biggest thing in anything that we do in life. So I think that's really helped me in terms of just my life in general. The way I deal with the business side of things now, and the way I deal with people in general, I think that's helped me a lot in the way we deal with things on the athletic side. Dealing with coaches, dealing with teammates, and how we deal with them. That's a big it's a big learning curve for some people, and I think it's really
I like how you said the process. What I learned through business is a lot of people don't understand the process of what it takes. A lot of people want to be part of the outcome. And the process is what's going to define who you are. So thank you for bringing that up with the process. Do you have any advice for the audience that's listening and watching this?
I mean, advice. I mean, I'm kind of geared towards the younger kids and the youth in general. Not just basketball, but I always say that whatever you're. I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever you're wanting to do in life, have a plan. You see a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that," but then when you ask them, "Well, what are you doing to get there?" They don't really know. They just kind of feel like it's going to fall into place. And I think it's hard as a young kid. I mean, I was like that too when I was younger, and not having you don't have an exact plan. And I think it's important to have people around you and surround yourself with good people that know what it takes. And it doesn't have to be that they're successful, um, successful athletes. I mean, successful people in general. Success always leaves clues, right? So I think it's having that plan and executing that plan on a day to day basis is super super important. There's days that we wake up and we don't feel like we want to do what we want to do, but those are the days that are going to really get us to where we want to be. Where we want to be.
Thank you for sharing that. I really enjoyed your advice. Thank you. What's next for you, Robbie?
Next for me here is continue to build my business here in Calgary. I definitely want to shift a little bit more of my focus now. Now I've been back for about 5 years. Actually, now it's funny since I'm saying that, just time flies. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I want to do on the basketball side of things as well too, with the younger generation as well too, that I've kind of looked into, and definitely focus on the business side of things. I'm actually working with the CBL right now. It's a Canadian Elite Basketball League. We have one of the local organizing committee right now. We have the Basketball Champions League of America is coming to Calgary, which is quite a fascinating event that's coming to Calgary. So that's coming up actually on March 14th to March 16th here. And that'll be a good event to come out for, especially for a lot of the young kids that play basketball, to see high level professional basketball in Calgary, and that's going to be at the Winsport Arena here. So I've been kind of helping out, getting people involved in that and getting people aware of what's going on in our backyard. I think it's a great opportunity for younger kids.
I appreciate there's another event for a lot of the youth could come out to support and watch the elite athletes play at a higher level.
Absolutely.
How can someone get hold of you, Robbie?
I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I mean, my email, phone, my phone number. I can definitely. If somebody want to reach out to you to grab that, I can definitely provide that. But yeah, my email is info@robbiesihota.com. I'm pretty easily accessible. And again, all the social media platforms that people use, I'm always available on those as well too. So I'm fairly easy to reach out. I'm always looking to help out wherever I can, um, and that's pretty much it for me.
Robbie, I want to say thank you for being on the Coach Harp today.
No, thank you. No, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
It was a great honor to chat with you. Everyone watching the Coach Harp Show, stay tuned for more special guests coming in the future. Thank you.